Good afternoon and welcome to the November 21st Human Relations Commission meeting. We will begin with introductions. I'm Barry Nelson, Chair of the Fargo Human Relations Commission. And if I could turn to my left and ask each of you first this way to introduce.
Hello, I'm Leticia Mizio-Hellerud. I'm a member.
Hello, I'm Hamida Dakani, I'm a member.
Adam Martin, I'm a member.
Mator Alir, member.
Cheryl Schafel, Commission member.
Cody Severson, member.
Thank you. And it shows that we do have quorum today. Appreciate people's diligence in attending. First on the agenda is you have the agenda before you. I would ask for approval or any corrections to that agenda.
I make motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. There's a second.
Second.
Second, Mature. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Something I always keep zipping past, but I'd also like to have the members of staff with us today to introduce themselves.
Tia Brasseth, Planning Department.
Nicole Crutchfield, Planning.
Karen Flum, Planning.
Calvin Christie, Planning.
Miranda Wolf, Planning.
We've got plenty in the house. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the minutes from our October 17th meeting. I'll give you a moment to glance over those, and when ready, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Leticia, thank you.
Second the motion.
Second, Cody, thank you. All those in, any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public comment time. We don't appear to have public, so I assume that we do not have any comments. Any comments that came through the planning department that needed to be shared? Okay, thank you. So we'll go into our first order of business, which is the job description for the members of the commission. I'm really pleased that we do have this. It was glaring when we were interviewing people for the commission, and people had a legitimate question like, well, what does it mean to be a commission member? So now we have it in writing. We had first reading of the job description at our last meeting, and so anything that people found jump out at them? Otherwise, we will have final reading for that. Let me just ask, is there a motion to accept the job description draft as printed before us?
I make a motion to accept.
Cheryl, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leticia. Is there discussion on the job description? Discussion, questions, ask for clarification? Hearing none, all those in favor of the job description indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Kathleen, for your work on this, and thank you all for due diligence in this, and now we have an official clear description of what we're about. Next item, we have the MLK Day update. I know meetings are occurring, and the date has been established for that. Would there be any updates that we would like to indicate in addition to what we already have? Okay, well, it is scheduled for January 20th. So please mark your calendar. Generally, commission members are asked to be present and volunteer for the event that evening. I know the program is being finalized. There's a fine tradition, as always, there's a number of videos that are presented that evening in addition to some live acts. And also the deadline has passed for nominations for the MLK Award, which is provided by the City of Fargo. We're fortunate that we had some wonderful nominations in all categories, organization, adult, and youth, and I'm sure those announcements will be made shortly. So thank you for the work on that. Moving to the next item is the last month we approved a sponsorship for the 10th Annual Human Rights Summit, which was held in Fargo on November 9th, hosted by the North Dakota Human Rights Coalition. And we had a number of commissioners who were present at that summit. And I would just use this moment to, I'll give a really quick update. Being involved within the Human Rights Coalition as well. We had John Nichols, who is a journalist, author, podcaster, and commentator, quite well known nationally. It's interesting, since the summit, I've seen him both on public TV being interviewed by Christina Amanpour, and also saw him on a documentary with Bill Moyer's Report. So the guy gets around. So it was nice to have him here in Fargo. He talked about what it's like to advance progressive issues like human rights and anti-discrimination, and the kind of work that needs to be done organizationally in order to do that. I personally felt that he provided a nice challenge to us in the room, as well as some inspiration as to why we should keep working at it. So Leticia or Cody, also there, any reflections on that day?
I thought it was a very well put together event. Yeah, it was a fun hour. I think it was an hour. Was it more? A couple hours. It was a good day.
Yeah, it went fast.
Yeah, I know there was just some really great discussions regarding what type of a world that we want to see and how to get to that point. It was nice.
Also, Hamida was there, so we loved the involvement, and yeah, and Christy. So I just look for any other reflections on the day. Okay.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was outstanding.
Well, it was nice, and it was interesting how he reminded us how everything good starts in North Dakota, like the non-partisan league, and those young people who are making changes in Congress. They all started the idea of leadership in North Dakota. So we are role model to the rest, but we are not good to ourselves. So we need work. We have a lot of things to do here in North Dakota, even though everything starts here. So that was my takeaway from his talk.
The latest story, he's told stories before, but the latest story was he talked about interviewing AOK, who's in Congress right now, and one of the things, she's striking by the fact that she's very young. She kind of went from working as a bartender waitress to running for Congress and winning, and he asked her what inspired her to do that, and she mentioned that she visited Stony Rock, and she was so challenged by that, and she said, somebody needs to be in Congress representing the voices of people that are here. And so that's what triggered her. So he said, there you go. She came to North Dakota and decided to run for Congress. So that was kind of inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah, it was, if I may, it was also reassuring, because when he pointed out the number people in attendance, and how we usually think that it's only 40 people attending, and he was putting this in perspective and said if we were in California, this would be like 2,000 people. So it was nice to be reminded that sometimes numbers have to be looked at a bigger context. And but I also thought that the representation, the spectrum of the people in the room was quite remarkable.
I saw the future there in that room. That's some great voices there. So, thank you. All right, we will move into the next item, which is new business. We have the 2020 meeting schedule before us, and it lists, we're continuing the tradition of having our meetings the third Thursday of each month at 12 noon here. I guess until something either comes before us that suggests we should change, that we will continue the tradition. Then has the Martin Luther King Jr. Day event listed on there. So any comments on the schedule? Or staff, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the schedule? All right. Okay. So I think this is just for our information. So we are going to move into staff report. So can I turn that over to whoever would, Nicole? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just a few quick updates. One is we did talk amongst staff and talked with Barry and Mature here on ordinance updates. You might remember when we had the bylaws in front of you last month, there was a comment, I think by Cody and Commissioner Strand, talking a little bit about making sure we needed some wordsmithing on our kind of ordinance purpose related to gender and sexual orientation. So we are working on that. We just want to let you know we heard you. We don't have that update for you quite yet, and so just an update there. In terms of the 2020 Planning Department work plan, one of our goals, you've heard me mention this before, hopefully, but as you know, we staff many boards and commissions. And one of the things that we're trying to do, that the City Commission has asked me to do actually, is come up with one work plan, not 13 work plans. And so this idea that we have our individual commissioner work plan related to the Human Relations Commission that we'll continue to talk about as we go in the next item. But as we take this opportunity to share with you some of our top goals for next year as it relates to all of our boards and commissions. And I'll be presenting kind of a, what I call a capital improvement plan in engineering language, but kind of our big picture goals for 2020. And so I wanted to share this with you as we look towards our goals of those folks might not know, the city operates a sweat lodge through our Native American Commission. And so as we look at our Native American Program Center and sweat lodge operations, we'll be focusing staff time on that, as well as inclusion and welcoming plan. I know you've heard us talk about that for quite a while, but that's definitely on the top of our list here. Arts and culture integration as we work in our public art program and program development with all of our boards and commissions, and so that understanding that the Arts and Culture Commission is like one entity, but their goal is to integrate that work across the city and in all different ways. Working on housing and homeless programs and development, external and internal city organizational human rights objectives based on our feedback we received from you last month. A core neighborhoods plan, that I'd be glad to talk about that as well. And one of the items that didn't make it on its list is the land development code update. So these are our priorities and I would say projects that are going to be our focus from the staff level. We definitely want to hear from you, either here today publicly, or if you want to talk to us individually to learn more about these programs and what they mean, what our goals are related to these. But just wanted to also show you more transparently how your work with the Human Relations Commission integrates with our work plan overall as a department. And so I'll leave you with that and be open to any questions.
Questions from the commissioners?
Yeah. And then lastly, we would, it's still open for discussions on the work plan, but then lastly, we'll, since we're at the end of our agenda, talking with Barry and Matur here, that we would devote the rest of our meeting today on the next steps of our strategic plan, and we do see the end in sight, so we thank you very much for that time.
Sure, and I think we had talked about maybe being a little more comfortable if we did just move down below.
Yeah, so I
here
think
to
we can
do
just
that.
grab, when you're ready to adjourn, we can just, instead of setting up the tables like we did last month, we can just grab chairs and sit in a circle, and that'll be a little bit easier.
Okay, and before we do that, just a couple, a question I would have is, one of the things that emerged from the Human Rights Summit, and bear me out, those of you who are there, is I think everybody was struck by how often hunger arose as an issue around the state, and particularly it arose on 3 levels. One was in terms of there's been a lot of publicity about lunchroom or lunch debt and how school districts are responding to that, and in some ways there's been a real question about if that's a real effective way to respond when there's unpaid debt by families for school lunch programs. And I know there's been some conversations here in Fargo, and the idea is, particularly through a couple organizations that are taking the lead on that, to extend that conversation around the state. The idea that no child should either be humiliated by the fact that the family is unable to pay a lunchroom fees. There shouldn't be serious consequences. There were reports even from families being referred to child protection because of unpaid debt, or students not being allowed to attend prom if there's unpaid debt. There just seemed to be some real serious consequences on something so basic as food. So that was one issue that came about, and it was even raised at, isn't it something that we could set a goal of eliminating hunger in the state within a short time? So I just see as we're looking at these kinds of issues, and I know we're still developing our strategic plan, it's just something that in a larger context is being discussed. So I just raised that as a thing that I recall from that conversation. There was a lot of energy behind it too, to figure out how to create solutions to that problem.
Yeah, I would say along those lines, Barry, we would concur just even in the last 2 weeks. I've been in various meetings where initiatives and discussion has started happening, and energy, like you said, developing on the component of hunger. And I would just offer this as one other tool we have. The TIA's team, and Karen and Catlin, have been working on what we call our 5-year consolidated plan. That's it's done through our community development committee, but it's basically through, it's a HUD mandate that when we're using federal housing or federal HUD dollars for CDBG, community development block grant monies, that we do a 5-year needs assessment, as well as a 5-year plan. So that tells us the plan on how we're going to spend federal dollars. And so in that needs assessment, Tia and the team and some consultants have been doing focus group sessions around the community, especially with our social service providers and housing providers, to kind of really understand more in depth. We have a survey out. I'm not sure when that closes. It hasn't opened. Okay, so we'll be having a survey go out. So we'll be sure to, as that survey goes out, we'll look for you all to send it to your constituents as well. But yeah, so that's really where we start to capture those specific components and then understand how we can support that through federal dollar programs as well.
I'd also like to add to that the United Way's community goals, their #1 community goal right now that goes through the end of next year, is to reduce hunger and homelessness within the community. So they have funding to help that goal for the next, the year, I think it ends in 2021. But their round of applications is happening right now. I think it has closed, but they're reviewing a bunch of applications for that particular goal that you brought up.
Thank you. All right. Then 2 other really quick ones. I just want to acknowledge, I know that our own Commissioner Cody was on a panel yesterday
Yeah.
I think, and thank you for some quick action. I believe as a result of that, it was recorded.
Yep, that's on Emerging Prairie's Facebook page, because I think that they just went Facebook Live with it, to be honest.
Okay.
And so it's in it's in that page.
Okay. Well, it just sounded like a great list of panel members, including Cody, and then a great list of questions that were being asked around being LGBT and transgender living in the area.
Yeah, involved in the workplace and how those dynamics play out.
Okay. So something that we'll look for,
Certainly.
not being able to be there. Okay. Thank you. Shall we, I think our official business, is there anything else for the good of the group? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn? And then we'll reconvene down below here. Mature, okay, second for adjournment?
I second.
Thank you. So let us just pull some chairs together down here and we'll complete our meeting today with strategic planning.